Captain Jake Sullivan sat quietly in the corner of the Grand Council chamber, watching as alien delegates argued about trade routes and border disputes. The massive room buzzed with the sounds of a dozen different languages being translated through universal communicators. Tall, blue-skinned Corellians waved their forearms dramatically while making their points. The reptilian Saldorians hissed and clicked their approval or disapproval. The ghostly pale Nexari spoke in whispers that somehow carried across the entire chamber. Jake had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years now. In all that time, he had spoken maybe 50 words during official sessions. When other delegates asked for humanity's opinion on military matters, he would simply nod and say something like, "Earth will consider all options," or "We prefer peaceful solutions." The other species had long ago stopped expecting much from the human delegation. "The Corellian fleet movements near Sector 7 are clearly aggressive," announced Admiral Vextar, his tall frame towering over the speaking platform. His translator made his deep voice sound even more intimidating. "We demand the Council address this threat immediately." The Corellian delegate, General Thane, stood up with all 4 arms crossed. "Our ships patrol our own territory. The Saldorians are the ones expanding beyond their borders." Jake watched the familiar dance of accusations and denials. He took notes on a simple tablet, recording ship numbers, fleet positions, and patrol schedules. To anyone watching, he looked like a bored diplomat taking meeting minutes. Nobody paid attention to exactly what he was writing down. Commander Lisa Brooks felt the vibration through the metal floor of her observation post as another alien convoy passed overhead. The human outpost on Kepler 442b was nothing impressive to look at, just a collection of prefabricated buildings and communication towers. Most alien ships didn't even bother to acknowledge the small human presence as they traveled through this sector. Another Nexari fleet heading toward the disputed zone, she reported into her communicator. 12 ships, including 2 heavy cruisers. They're running silent, but our sensors pick them up anyway. Copy that, Lisa. Any response to your standard greeting? Came the voice of Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes from Earth Command. They ignored us completely. Same as always. Lisa watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. I don't think they even realize we're tracking them. This was the pattern that had developed over the past 2 years. Alien fleets would pass through human space as if it were empty. They would conduct military exercises near human colonies without asking permission. They would intercept human cargo ships for routine inspections and treat human crews like children. The galaxy had decided that humans were harmless. Dr. Alex Martinez finished his shift at Harmony Point, the neutral trading station that served as a meeting place for all the major species. As a xenobiologist, he was supposed to study alien life forms, but he spent most of his time listening to conversations in the station's many bars and restaurants. "The humans are so quiet," he overheard a Corellian officer saying to his companions. "They never complain when we inspect their ships. They never challenge our territorial claims. I think they're afraid of real conflict." A Saldorian merchant hissed in agreement. "My cousin serves on a patrol ship near their colonies. He says human vessels always change course to avoid any confrontation. They run away before we even power up our weapons." Alex sipped his coffee and continued reading his tablet, but he was recording every word through a tiny device in his shirt pocket. This intelligence would be transmitted to Earth along with thousands of other seemingly casual conversations he had captured over the months. The truth was that Alex had requested this assignment specifically to gather information. His xenobiology credentials were real, but his primary job was intelligence gathering. The aliens spoke freely around him because they saw humans as insignificant. They never imagined that the quiet scientist in the corner was building a complete picture of their military capabilities, political tensions, and strategic weaknesses. Captain Dan Phillips guided his research vessel through the asteroid field with practiced ease. The ship was officially designated as a geological survey craft, and his crew spent their days taking samples from rocks and measuring mineral deposits. Any alien patrol that stopped them would find exactly what they expected: boring, scientific equipment and detailed reports about asteroid composition. What those patrols wouldn't find were the advanced sensor arrays hidden throughout the ship, or the quantum communication system that allowed instant contact with Earth. They wouldn't detect the military-grade computers analyzing every piece of data the crew collected, or the fact that several crew members were actually intelligence specialists with advanced training in alien languages and technology. Saldorian destroyer approaching from Sector 4, reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster. Should we change course? No. Maintain current heading. Let them scan us. Dan watched as the alien warship closed in on their position. Remember, we're just rock collectors who got lost in the asteroid field. The Saldorian ship performed a routine scan and then moved on without even opening communications. To them, the human vessel was beneath notice, just another example of humanity's limited ambitions and primitive technology. But the human ship's sensors had been analyzing the destroyer during the entire encounter. They now had detailed information about its shield frequencies, weapon signatures, engine output, and hull composition. This data would be transmitted to Earth and added to the growing database of alien military technology. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes stood in the command center deep beneath the Colorado mountains, watching displays that showed human activities across dozens of star systems. To any outside observer, humanity appeared to be a minor species focused on peaceful exploration and quiet trade. Human colonies were small and seemed defensively weak. Human ships were designed for cargo transport and scientific research rather than combat. The reality was very different. Every human outpost was carefully positioned to provide maximum intelligence gathering capability. Every trade route was planned to allow monitoring of alien fleet movements. Every scientific mission was actually a reconnaissance operation in disguise. "Report from the Kepler station," announced one of his analysts. "Corellian and Saldorian fleets are building up forces near the neutral zone. Estimated timeline for open conflict is 3 to 6 months. Nexari intelligence suggests they're planning to exploit any war between the other two species," added another analyst. "Their stealth technology gives them a significant advantage in ship-to-ship combat." Ryan nodded and made notes on his tablet. The alien species were so focused on each other that they had completely overlooked humanity's true capabilities. While they built bigger weapons and stronger shields, humans had been developing entirely different approaches to warfare. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating the quiet ones. Human ships continued their peaceful missions. Human diplomats remained politely neutral in council meetings, and human colonies appeared to mind their own business. But beneath this calm surface, humanity was preparing for something the galaxy had never seen before. The other species were so busy watching each other that they never noticed the patient observers taking notes from the shadows. They were about to discover that the most dangerous predator is often the one that never makes a sound until it's too late to escape. The war began with a single shot fired in empty space between two patrol ships. A Corellian captain claimed the Saldorian vessel had crossed into restricted territory. The Saldorian commander insisted they were in neutral space. Within hours, both species were calling up their reserve fleets and preparing for the conflict everyone knew was coming. Admiral Peter Knox watched the unfolding chaos from the bridge of his ship, the human vessel Liberty. The ship looked like a typical human design: smooth lines, minimal weapons, built more for exploration than fighting. No alien commander would look twice at it or consider it a threat. They had no idea that the Liberty was actually one of the most advanced ships in the galaxy, disguised to look ordinary and harmless. "Corellian battle fleet assembling in Sector 9, reported his communications officer. 300 ships including their flagship Eternal Dominion. They're bringing everything they have." Peter nodded and studied the tactical display. The Corellians were indeed committing their entire military force to this conflict. Their massive dreadnought was the size of a small city, bristling with enough weapons to destroy an entire planet. They clearly intended to end this war quickly through overwhelming force. "Saldorian response?" he asked. 250 ships moving to intercept. Their flagship Void Hammer is leading the formation. The officer paused to listen to incoming transmissions. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all channels. They claim they have enough firepower to crack a moon in half." The Saldorians had always been the most aggressive of the major species. Their ships were built like flying fortresses, designed to absorb massive damage while dealing out even more. Their crews trained from childhood for combat, and their military doctrine focused on direct confrontation and overwhelming firepower. Colonel Sarah Blake sat in her monitoring station on Titan Base, one of humanity's most important intelligence facilities. The base was officially listed as a research outpost studying Saturn's moons, but its real purpose was intercepting and analyzing communications from across the galaxy. Sarah's team of linguists and code specialists worked around the clock to decode alien military transmissions. "The Nexari are mobilizing too," she reported to Earth Command. "They're not taking sides yet, but their stealth fleets are moving into position around both battle groups. Looks like they plan to pick off survivors after the main battle." The Nexari were the most mysterious of the major species. Their advanced cloaking technology made their ships nearly invisible, even to military sensors. They preferred to strike from ambush, using hit-and-run tactics to avoid direct confrontation. Many smaller species feared them more than the openly aggressive Corellians or Saldorians. "Estimated casualties?" asked Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes over the secure channel. Sarah checked her analysis reports. "Conservative estimate is 60% losses on both sides in the first major engagement. If the Nexari get involved, we could see total fleet destruction for all three species." This was exactly what Earth had been preparing for. The major alien powers were about to destroy each other in a massive war, leaving the galaxy's military balance completely disrupted. But humanity would not be caught unprepared. Captain Dan Phillips maintained his position in the outer system, officially conducting routine mineral surveys while secretly observing the military buildup. His ship, the Watchful Eye, appeared to be nothing more than a civilian research vessel that had wandered too close to the conflict zone. "Corellian patrol approaching," announced Lieutenant Amy Foster from the sensor station. "They're hailing us." "Put them through," Dan replied, settling into his captain's chair and putting on his best confused civilian expression. The Corellian commander appeared on the main screen, his blue skin darker than usual with apparent frustration. "Human vessel, you are entering a restricted military zone. Withdraw immediately or you will be fired upon." Dan nodded respectfully. "Of course, Admiral. We had no idea there were military operations in this area. We're just a simple research ship collecting samples. We'll move to a safe distance right away." "See that you do. And human?" The alien commander leaned forward. "Stay out of our way. This war is not your concern." "Understood, sir. Earth wishes only for peace between our peoples." Dan kept his voice, humble and submissive, exactly what the Corellians expected from humans. The connection ended and Dan smiled slightly. During that brief conversation, his ship's sensors had been analyzing the Corellian fleet formations, recording weapon signatures, and mapping their communication frequencies. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they never bothered to scan for advanced human surveillance equipment. "All data transmitted to Earth Command," Amy reported quietly. "We now have complete tactical profiles on their entire battle group." The first major battle occurred 3 days later in the Vega system. The Corellian and Saldorian fleets met in the space between two dead planets, far from any civilian populations. The engagement lasted 18 hours and could be seen from several star systems as massive explosions lit up the darkness. Dr. Alex Martinez watched the battle report streaming in from his position on Harmony Point. The neutral station had become a refugee center as civilians from both species fled the war zones. The bars and restaurants that once hosted peaceful trade negotiations now served as emergency shelters. "Preliminary casualty reports are coming in," he said into his concealed communicator. "Corellians lost 43 ships including 2 heavy cruisers. Saldorians lost 37 ships and their battle carrier Stormbringer." "Any sign of Nexari involvement?" came the reply from Earth. "Not yet, but several ships reported sensor contacts that disappeared without explanation. They're definitely watching and waiting for the right moment to strike." The battle had been everything Earth's analysts predicted. Both species had committed their most powerful ships to the fight, using weapons that consumed enormous amounts of energy and left their vessels vulnerable to counterattack. The traditional approach to space warfare was proving to be exactly as wasteful and destructive as human strategists had calculated. Captain Jake Sullivan found himself busier than usual as alien delegations demanded emergency council sessions to address the growing conflict. The Galactic Council was supposed to prevent exactly this kind of war, but the major powers had ignored diplomatic solutions in favor of military action. The Corellian Empire demands that the Council recognize our territorial claims, announced General Thane, his forearms gesturing angrily. The Saldorian Collective has violated 3 separate treaties. Your so-called treaties were forced upon us through military intimidation, hissed the Saldorian representative. We will not be bound by agreements made under threat of violence. Jake listened to the familiar arguments and took his usual notes. But now his observations had taken on new importance. He was recording every detail about alien political structures, military command systems, and decision-making processes. What is Earth's position on this conflict? Asked Admiral Vextar, the Zephyrian mediator. Jake stood slowly and cleared his throat. The human government continues to hope for a peaceful resolution to these disputes. We believe all species benefit from cooperation rather than conflict. Several alien delegates made dismissive sounds. The Corellian general actually laughed. Typical human response. No wonder your species has never amounted to anything significant in galactic affairs. Jake nodded politely and sat back down, but he was secretly recording every insult and dismissive comment. The alien powers were making it very clear that they viewed humanity as weak and irrelevant. That assumption would soon prove to be their greatest mistake. The war continued to escalate over the following weeks. More ships were destroyed, more colonies were evacuated, and more resources were diverted to military production. The 3 major powers were burning through their military assets at an unsustainable rate, exactly as Earth's strategists had predicted. Meanwhile, human ships continued their quiet work throughout the galaxy. Research vessels gathered intelligence, trade ships monitored supply lines, and diplomatic missions recorded every detail of the unfolding conflict. The galaxy was tearing itself apart while the quiet humans watched and waited. Soon, it would be time for humanity to reveal what they had really been doing during all those years of apparent weakness and passivity. The first ship disappeared on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. The Corellian patrol vessel Steelhawk was conducting a routine sweep of the outer rim when it simply stopped responding to communications. Search teams found the area completely empty. No debris, no distress signals, no trace that a ship had ever been there. Commander Tony Clark monitored the search efforts from Luna Station, Earth's primary communications hub. His team tracked thousands of transmissions every day, but the frantic calls from Corellian search vessels caught their attention immediately. The aliens were genuinely confused and frightened by what they had found, or rather, what they had not found. Initial reports suggest complete disappearance, Tony transmitted to Earth Command. No evidence of weapon impact, engine failure, or enemy action. The ship just vanished from sensors and never reappeared. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes reviewed the report with interest. The Steelhawk had been carrying a crew of 200 Corellians and mounted enough weapons to level a small city. Ships like that did not simply disappear without leaving some kind of trace. Any unusual readings in that sector? Ryan asked. Actually, yes, sir. Captain Nicole Reed's research vessel, Endeavour, reported some strange electromagnetic fluctuations about 6 hours before the disappearance. She was conducting mineral surveys in a nearby asteroid field. The disappearances continued over the following days. A Saldorian supply convoy vanished between hyperspace jumps, leaving only confused escort ships wondering where their charges had gone. 3 Nixari stealth ships stopped reporting to their command base, which was particularly disturbing since those vessels were specifically designed to remain hidden from enemy detection. Dr. Alex Martinez noticed the pattern before the alien militaries did. His position on Harmony Point gave him access to communications from all 3 major species, and he began tracking the disappearances across different sectors of space. 17 ships lost in the past week, he reported during his daily intelligence transmission. All different classes, all different locations, all vanished without any distress signals or debris fields. Any connection between the locations? came the response from Earth. Alex studied his star charts. They're all in sectors where human research vessels have been operating recently. But that might be coincidence. We have survey ships throughout this region of space. The alien commands were becoming increasingly worried as more ships disappeared. The losses were random enough that no single species felt specifically targeted, but frequent enough that patrol schedules had to be changed and supply routes rerouted. Captain Dan Phillips received new orders to expand his survey operations into sectors where ships had recently vanished. His vessel, the Watchful Eye, was officially investigating the electromagnetic anomalies that several human research teams had reported in these areas. Saldorian destroyer Thunderstrike went missing here 3 days ago, reported Lieutenant Amy Foster as they approached the coordinates. Their last transmission was a routine patrol update. Dan nodded and activated the ship's advanced sensor array. To any observer, they would appear to be conducting standard scientific measurements. In reality, they were testing experimental technology that most of the galaxy could not even imagine. Initiating scan sequence, Dan announced to his crew. Remember, we're just scientists investigating unusual energy readings. The sensors revealed nothing unusual about the empty space where the Saldorian ship had disappeared. But the Watchful Eye's computers were analyzing much more than electromagnetic radiation. They were measuring quantum field fluctuations, space-time distortions, and energy signatures that no alien technology could detect. The major loss that finally got galactic attention was the Corellian heavy cruiser Iron Talon. This was not some minor patrol vessel or supply ship. It was a frontline warship with 800 crew members and enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. When it failed to arrive at its scheduled rendezvous, Admiral Krell personally led the search operation. Colonel Sarah Blake intercepted the increasingly desperate communications from the Corellian search fleets. Their most advanced sensors found absolutely nothing in the sector where Iron Talon should have been. The ship had simply ceased to exist between one hyperspace jump and the next. They're starting to panic, she reported to Earth Command. Admiral Krell is demanding answers from his own intelligence services. They think it might be some kind of new Saldorian or Nexari weapon. What about the other species? Asked Ryan. Same reaction. Everyone suspects everyone else, but nobody has any idea what's actually happening to these ships. The disappearances accelerated as the weeks passed. The Saldorian battlecruiser Hammer's Edge vanished along with its entire escort squadron. 12 ships and over 3,000 crew members gone without explanation. The Nexari lost 3 of their most advanced stealth carriers in a single week, ships so sophisticated that they were considered impossible to detect, much less destroy. Major Kevin Ward led the official human response to the crisis. His rescue coordination teams were dispatched to search for survivors whenever alien ships went missing, but they consistently arrived to find empty space and confused alien search parties. Another thorough search completed, Kevin reported after investigating the disappearance of a Saldorian supply fleet. Our advanced sensors detected minimal debris, just a few small metal fragments that could have come from anywhere. What Kevin did not report was that his teams were using sensors far more advanced than anything the alien species possessed. These sensors could detect quantum signatures, temporal distortions, and energy patterns that revealed exactly what had happened to the missing ships. The truth was that the ships had not been destroyed at all. They had been moved, transported to secure locations using technology that manipulated the fundamental structure of space and time itself. The crews were alive and unharmed, held in a form of temporal stasis that kept them safe while removing their ships from the battlefield. Captain Jake Sullivan found himself dealing with increasingly frantic alien delegates at emergency council sessions. The mysterious disappearances had effectively ended the three-way war, as all factions pulled their fleets back to defensive positions around their home systems. This crisis threatens the stability of the entire galaxy, declared Admiral Vextar during one heated session. Over 200 ships have vanished without explanation. We demand a full investigation by neutral parties. Jake nodded sympathetically. Earth stands ready to assist in any way possible. Our research vessels have been investigating the electromagnetic anomalies that seem to be connected to these disappearances. What have you found? demanded the Saldorian representative. Strange energy readings, unusual gravitational fluctuations, but nothing that clearly explains what's happening to these ships, Jake replied honestly. He was not lying. The energy readings were indeed strange and unusual. Just not in the way the alien delegates assumed. The Corellian general leaned forward aggressively. Some of my advisors suggest this might be the work of an unknown hostile force, perhaps a species that has been hiding its true capabilities. Jake met his gaze calmly. That seems unlikely, General. Surely a species advanced enough to make entire fleets disappear would have revealed itself by now. As the weeks passed, the alien militaries became increasingly desperate. Their most powerful warships, the vessels they had counted on to win the war, were vanishing faster than they could replace them. Patrol schedules were reduced to minimum levels. Supply convoys traveled only in heavily escorted groups. The three species that had been ready to tear the galaxy apart were now afraid to send their ships into deep space. Captain Nicole Reed continued her mineral surveys in the sectors where ships had disappeared, always finding the same unusual readings, but never quite being present when the actual disappearances occurred. Her detailed reports painted a picture of space-time distortions that suggested technology far beyond anything the known species possessed. The galaxy had become a very quiet place. The warring fleets that had once filled space with the sounds of battle were now huddled around their homeworlds, too frightened to venture out where their ships might be the next to simply cease existing. Nobody suspected that the quiet humans, still conducting their peaceful research missions and offering helpful assistance in search operations, were responsible for making the galaxy's most powerful weapons vanish without a trace. The emergency council session was called on a Friday afternoon, when the disappearances reached a critical point. Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrians, Fleet Commander Thane of the Saldorians, and High Admiral Zelix of the Corellians gathered aboard the neutral station Concordia. Their faces showed a mixture of fear and desperation that had never been seen before in galactic politics. Captain Jake Sullivan arrived with a small human delegation, maintaining the same quiet demeanor he had shown for years. He carried a simple briefcase and wore the standard human diplomatic uniform, nothing impressive or threatening about his appearance. The alien commanders barely glanced at him as he took his usual seat in the corner. "We are facing an unprecedented crisis," Admiral Vextar began. "In 6 weeks, we have lost over 300 warships. Our fleets are afraid to leave their home systems. Trade routes have been abandoned. The galaxy is paralyzed by fear." High Admiral Zelix slammed his 4 fists on the table. "Someone is picking off our ships one by one. This is not natural phenomena. This is warfare by an unknown enemy." Fleet Commander Thane hissed in agreement. "Our intelligence services have found no evidence of any new hostile species, yet our most powerful vessels are vanishing as if they never existed." Jake listened quietly and took notes just as he had done for years. But today would be different. Today, the quiet humans would finally speak. Dr. Alex Martinez stood up from his seat in the observation gallery. His appearance at the emergency session surprised everyone. Xenobiologists were not usually invited to military crisis meetings, but Jake had specifically requested his presence. "If I may," Alex said politely, "I believe I can shed some light on what has been happening to your ships." The alien commanders turned to stare at the human scientist. Admiral Vexitar gestured for him to continue, though his expression showed he did not expect much from a human researcher. Alex activated a holographic display that showed the locations where ships had disappeared. The pattern was clear when viewed on a galactic scale. The disappearances formed a precise geometric arrangement that covered all the major hyperspace routes and strategic positions. "The vanishing ships follow a mathematical pattern," Alex explained, calmly. "This is not random destruction or natural phenomena. Someone has been systematically removing vessels from specific locations using technology that operates outside conventional physics." High Admiral Zelix leaned forward. "What kind of technology could do this?" "Selective displacement fields," Alex replied. "A theoretical application of space-time manipulation that could transport matter from one location to another, without conventional movement through space." The alien commanders exchanged confused glances. None of their species had ever heard of such technology. Commander Lisa Brooks entered the chamber carrying a datapad. Her presence also surprised the aliens. Human military officers rarely attended diplomatic meetings. She walked directly to Jake and handed him the datapad without saying a word. Jake stood up slowly, his movement drawing attention from everyone in the room. For the first time in years, he was about to speak more than a few polite sentences. "The missing ships have not been destroyed," Jake announced calmly. "They have been relocated to secure facilities where their crews are being held safely in temporal stasis." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Admiral Vextar demanded silence before gesturing for Jake to continue. "For the past 5 years, humanity has been developing defensive technologies that make conventional warfare obsolete," Jake continued. "While your species focused on building bigger weapons and stronger shields, we created systems that could remove hostile forces from the battlefield without destroying them." Admiral Peter Knox entered the chamber through the main doors, still wearing his ship captain's uniform. Behind him walked Major Kevin Ward and Captain Dan Phillips. The alien delegates began to realize that this was not a coincidence. The humans had planned this revelation carefully. "The technology exists," Peter confirmed. "Our displacement systems can target and relocate any vessel within a range of 50 light-years. The process is instantaneous and leaves no trace that conventional sensors can detect." Fleet Commander Thane stood up angrily. "You expect us to believe that humans, quiet, peaceful humans, have developed weapons beyond our understanding?" "Captain," Dan Phillips smiled for the first time since the aliens had known him. "We never developed weapons, Commander. We developed something better, the ability to make weapons irrelevant." He activated another holographic display that showed detailed scans of alien ship designs. The display included internal layouts, weapon specifications, shield frequencies, and crew quarters. Information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. Every ship that passed through human space was scanned and analyzed, Dania explained. "Every patrol that ignored our research vessels gave us complete technical specifications. Your dismissive attitude toward humanity allowed us to study your technology without interference." Dr. Alex Martinez took over the presentation. "We learned that all 3 major species rely on the same basic approach to warfare: overwhelming firepower, heavy armor, and direct confrontation. Your military doctrines have not changed in centuries. While you were perfecting old ideas, humanity was exploring entirely new possibilities," added Commander Lisa Brooks. "We discovered that controlling space itself is more effective than building weapons to fight in space." The alien commanders sat in stunned silence as the implications became clear. The quiet humans had not been weak or passive. They had been patient and calculating. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes appeared on the main display screen, broadcasting from Earth Command. His presence made it clear that this revelation was coordinated at the highest levels of human government. "The displaced vessels can be returned to their fleets," Ryan announced. "The crews are unharmed and have been provided with detailed sensor logs showing exactly how they were captured. You will see that your most advanced military technology is centuries behind human capabilities." High Admiral Zellex finally found his voice. "What do you want from us?" Jake Sullivan walked to the center of the chamber, no longer the ignored diplomat sitting quietly in the corner. "We want peace. The galaxy will adapt to a new reality where territorial wars and military aggression are no longer possible." "You're holding our fleets hostage," accused Admiral Vextar. "We're offering you a choice," Jake replied calmly. "Continue trying to solve disputes through warfare and watch your military assets disappear one by one, or learn to resolve conflicts through negotiation and cooperation." Captain Nicole Reed entered with a team of human technicians carrying advanced equipment. "We're prepared to demonstrate the displacement technology," she announced. "Any volunteer ship can be transported to our secure facility and returned within 1 hour." The alien delegates looked at each other with expressions of fear and amazement. Their entire understanding of galactic power structures had been overturned in a single meeting. Fleet Commander Thane spoke quietly. "How long have you been able to do this?" 3 years, Jake answered honestly. "We've been testing and refining the technology while observing your military buildup. The recent war provided an excellent opportunity to field test our systems on a large scale. You used our conflict as a testing ground? High Admiral Zellick sounded outraged. We prevented your conflict from destroying the galaxy, corrected Dr. Alex Martinez. Without our intervention, this war would have killed millions and left entire star systems in ruins. Major Kevin Ward stepped forward. The displaced ships will be returned over the next 72 hours. Their crews will bring back complete documentation of human technological capabilities. You'll understand exactly how outmatched conventional military forces have become. Jake returned to his seat but remained standing. Humanity is prepared to serve as galactic peacekeepers, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple ability to remove aggressive forces from any conflict. The chamber remained silent for long minutes as the alien commanders absorbed what they had learned. The quiet species they had dismissed as irrelevant had achieved absolute military supremacy without firing a single shot. Admiral Vextar finally spoke. What happens to our sovereignty, our independence? Nothing changes except your ability to wage war against each other, Jake replied. Govern your people, expand your colonies, develop your cultures. But understand that any attempt to use military force against civilian populations or neutral parties will result in the immediate displacement of your fleets. The age of galactic warfare had ended not with massive battles or conquered worlds, but with the quiet revelation that the most dangerous species in the galaxy was the one that never made threats. They simply made problems disappear.